everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher turned homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z, a place where we talk about all things homeschooling. And today I'm going to talk about how I teach two different grade levels at the same time. A common question I get asked a lot is, how do you handle teaching kids when they're not all the same age or same grade level? And I think that is very clear when it comes to homeschooling. That's kind of a more unique challenge, because unless you have twins or triplets, which like obviously some people do, but like for the most part, most people who are homeschooling have kids who are across a span of ages, right? Like that. Even if you do have twins or triplets, you might even have other kids who are different ages than they are. So for a lot of people who are homeschooling, they're homeschooling multiple grades at the same time. In our house, we're homeschooling 2 grades at the same time. I have one in 5th grade and one in 3rd grade, and that's happening at the same time. So how logistically do you manage homeschooling kids when they're at different grade levels? Like, what is the logistics? What are the practicalities of like that actually happening? So we're going to talk about that today. But before I get into like the practical side of it, I do want to remind you that teachers do this all the time, right? Teachers are teaching our kids multiple grade levels all the time. Even if you're in a straight class, so like a straight cut class where it is just one grade, so like just a grade 3, chances are, given the number of IEPs and accommodations and special needs that are in schools today, they're probably teaching multiple grade levels, right? There might be kids who are modified down to a grade 1 level in their class. They might have a kid who's gifted and is modified up a grade level. They might have some students who are behind for a variety of reasons and are struggling to catch up. So even though they are teaching one grade, they're having to meet the needs of kids across a large variety of grades. That's the kind of dynamics Teachers College is teaching you for. The other thing that happens is, especially in our area, split grades are very common, right? Like a grade 3-4 split is very, very common, especially since we're kind of on the outskirts. Pretty much every class in the schools in our area are like a grade 1-2, grade 3-4. My best friend even at one point taught a grade 5, 6, 7, 8 split. You heard me. 4 grades, 1 class. So this is happening. Teaching multiple grades at once is happening regardless of whether you're homeschooling or in school. Like it is just like a reality of the situation. So like, let's not feel guilty that we have to teach our kids 2 different grades at the same time. It's existing already. So how do you handle teaching multiple kids at the same time? Everyone is going to have a different approach to this. I know some people who straight up handle, like, I do kid number 1, and then I do kid number 2, and then I do kid number 3. And that's just how they do it. And like, they do this like an hour with this kid, an hour with this kid, an hour with this kid. And that's what they do. You know, they start with the oldest one. And then while they do all their teaching, and then while the kid is doing like the work, the practice math questions or like the writing assignment, they move on to the next one and then do the same. And so that there's always a little bit of like independent work that's being done while they're teaching the other kids. And if that works for you, like, amazing. Like, that's a totally valid and, for some people, very practical option. That's just not how I do it. So I can only tell you how I do it, and kind of like a little bit of like how teachers do it from a teaching perspective, because teachers have to do it kind of on the fly. So this is how I do it. This is how I was trained to do it as a teacher, and it just made sense in my brain. So that's just what we do. So when it comes to teaching my kids, which I have 2, I split it into 2 kind of categories: stuff we can do together and stuff we have to do apart. And that seems to kind of really work well for us. So the stuff we can do together is stuff that I can do family style learning. So this will be like novel studies. This will be like our units. So our history, our geography, social studies, stuff like that. That's kind of like what we're doing as a family. And that's what we do there. And then even in some language and writing, like we'll do that as a family too. And then there are stuff that they are very clearly working on at their own grade level. So like math, they're working at 2 very different levels. Even like grammar, they're working at 2 very different levels. So I consider that kind of like more independent work. So like that's their own stuff, and then there's the family style stuff. So for the family style stuff, here's how I'd handle it. This is kind of like how I do it. In Teachers College, we call it differentiated instruction. Like it's a fancy word of saying basically we do one lesson and we adjust the expectations for individual kids. So basically I kind of, teach the lesson, we talk about it, we do the readings, we do the different things, and then I just adjust what I expect out of the two kids. So some ways that I would make adjustments for my kids. So for example, my youngest, I might do some scribing for her, which is like writing out what she's saying. For example, if we're doing like questions that would be like really big answers, or if we're doing something like writing a story when she was younger and she was like just not able to physically write as much as she wanted to, I would scribe for her. So I would, take my pencil and I would write down literally every word she says, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's not grammatically correct. We would go and I would write down word for word what she says. Because then you can go back and do the editing process with her, just as you would with an older student who maybe wrote something that didn't make sense or did some bad grammar. And then that's how they learn. Like I did that when I was teaching too. We would scribe for some kids all the time. And so that is something you can do to take one assignment. For example, like if you're writing a story, my oldest, I expect her to write the whole thing out. My youngest, I would help her scribe at least a big section of it, just to kind of keep her from not feeling overwhelmed. And it's still the same assignment. It's just two different expectations. Another way that I would differentiate for them is I might lower or raise the expectations depending on what the assignment is. So for example, if it is like a short answer writing kind of assignment, I might expect my youngest to write like 1 or 2 sentences as a response, whereas I expect my oldest to write like 3, 4, or 5 sentences as a response, right? Depending on what the answer is. So that's a really simple way to like differentiate without really making it a lot more work for yourself. Give me an answer. I want more details. I want more explanation. I want evidence from the text for the oldest kid. The younger one, hey, give me an answer and find me one piece of evidence from the text. Right? 2 sentences, 4 or 5 sentences. And all of a sudden you have different answers, different expectations, same question, same assignment. You can also do this on like, in terms of like what you're kind of like looking at when you're looking at an assignment. So for example, if you were doing like a story, right? And you're having the kids write stories, I'm going to be much pickier with my older daughter than with my younger daughter, because I'm going to be, I expect more from her. Right? The expectation is different. I might even assign her something slightly different. So in the story, I might say, hey, I'd really like you to work on putting in some symbolism throughout your piece, and just like on top of characters and plot. Whereas my youngest, I'm like, okay, we're just going to work on characters and plot for right now. Or I might, ask my older daughter to like add more like setting building. So add more like descriptive language to your piece, right? So again, same assignment, different expectations, might have modified it slightly, giving her like, I want you to be more descriptive over the younger one. But, again, it's the same assignment. It's not a huge extra ask for me, like to do the teaching of it. It's just, an extra sentence or 2 in terms of telling my kid. So like that's a really easy way to do it as well. And then sometimes you just kind of let kids get what they get. I think some parents get really overwhelmed. They're like, hey, I want my kids, if I'm doing a unit and this one is only picking up, half of it and this one is picking up all of it, like I feel very overwhelmed. Well, the younger one's going to pick up less because they're younger. And that's okay. Like that's totally normal. They're, they're going to pick up a little bit on the same topic. So for example, when we did a space unit, my youngest picked up like the names of the planets and the different types of like space debris. So like comets and asteroids and meteors and the moon and the sun and like moon phases. Like she picked that up. She didn't really get the whole timeline on like space exploration. Like that was just kind of over her head. She was like, I don't really understand. She also didn't really understand how telescopes worked. But then again, she was 2 years younger than my oldest. My oldest totally got that part. So even though we did one unit, they both kind of picked up what they, developmentally could pick up out of that unit. And that's not to say they can't go back and revisit it later on. That's not to say they can't ask questions about it. They can't, go and do some research if they have more questions. But not everybody's going to pick up everything, right? And like, just so we're all on the same page, that happens in schools too. In fact, like in Ontario, when we're looking at kids to get like a level 3, which is a B, that's like the standard at which we want all kids to be at is like a B. That's only 70 to 75%, meaning that they're only picking up and retaining 70 to 75% of the material taught. So like, that's true too. So like, if your kids are missing a little bit here and there, that's okay in terms of like, they're not picking up everything in a unit. That's fine. They're picking up something, they're learning, they're engaging, and that's half the battle, right? Because you can learn anything at any point in time. You just have to be interested in it. And the other thing I love to do with kids when we're doing these family style units is ask them questions and let them ask me questions. Because you can take like a topic like space, for example, and go on some very different tangents. Depending on what your kids are developmentally able to do, what they're interested in, what they've picked up, maybe they have a hole or a question or a burning, nagging thought in their brain, you can take space in a whole bunch of different directions. Okay? A perfect example is me and my husband. Whenever I'm like talking space, I'm like planets and, stars and constellations. And that's how my brain works. My husband is like black holes, age of the universe, like he wants to talk like space-time continuums. And I'm like, we go in very different directions. Kids do the same. And so we can go and have like conversations with our kids about the topic we're talking about, but into like veering in the direction that they're already questioning and asking questions about. And then it's a great opportunity to bring in some research skills. So yeah, so that's kind of how we do family learning. So we all get together, we learn about one topic, we read one book, like we do those kind of things together. But how do I handle things when they're on like different levels and I want to do them separately? So this is how I do it. Generally speaking, the way that we structure our day, basically it's going to be like language and math are what they're working on separately. My youngest works on language skills and math. My oldest does language skills, math, and reading comprehension. So that's what they're doing. I will say the nice thing about older kids is they are much more independent. So like I can like say like, here's your workbook, your stack of workbooks, do your work. And if you have questions, ask me. And that's kind of how I run with my oldest at this point. Like she's pretty independent, which is nice. She's in grade 5. Yeah, grade 5. She's pretty independent. Like she is able to do a lot. When she was younger, I would definitely set her up first with like, hey, here's what you're doing. Here's what you need to be doing. If it's a little lesson, give her a quick lesson, get her going. And then while she's working independently, move on to my youngest and do the same, get her going, start working with her, get her set up. And then usually when she's kind of finishing her activity, then Alexi is back and needs to work on the next subject or has questions. And then I kind of bounce back and forth between them. And for some people that are like, that is just too much. You might have too chaotic. Your kids might not like it. That's just what works for us. At this point, like I said, generally speaking, Alexi is pretty independent unless she has a question or unless it's like a brand new skill. She has no idea what to do. She's pretty independent. She can read all of her own language writing, like language books. She can do all of her own writing. She can do all of that. Zoe needs a little bit more assistance because she is still struggling on her reading. So like we'll sit down and I'll help her read and get through everything she needs to get through. But generally speaking, by the time we've done our language and our reading and like all of our family stuff, there's only ends up being about 30 to 45 minutes of like independent work after that anyway. So, for 45 minutes, we kind of just bounce back and forth as needed and as they need help. I do know a lot of people who have found, especially if they have more than 2 kids, outsourcing certain subjects can be a great option. And outsourcing can look different in a variety of ways. It can be getting a tutor. It can be signing them up for online classes, whether that is like certain subjects through like Outschool or different like private school kind of options. There's some like online like homeschool classes you can sign up for. The other thing that like some people use like online curriculum. So things like Beast Academy or teaching textbooks or something like that, where like the parents are like supervising, making sure everyone's good, but like the online curriculum is doing the majority of the work. Like it's answering the questions, it's checking that the answers are right, like that kind of thing. So that's also a great option, especially if you're like, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. You can totally outsource some subjects. That can be really, really helpful. And then the kids can kind of like do your family time, do a couple things, and then like go off and work with whatever outsourced program you're using. The one thing that I will say that I've kind of like noticed a lot lately in terms of homeschool circles is a little bit of guilt when it comes from parents when their kids have to do certain things. And one of them that I've noticed lately, which I think is really funny, and I keep reminding parents like that's very normal, is like, oh, well, I feel so guilty. Like I'm working with, kid A and kid B has a question and I can't answer kid B's question at the same time that I'm working with kid A. And I look at them, I'm like, that happens in school too. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in school, but like I remember having to wait 3 or 4 kids deep in line to get my question answered at school because the teacher was she was busy. There was other kids in front of me. They had their questions first and I had to stand in line and wait, or I had to put my hand up or whatever, flip the little flip that said I needed help on my table, like whatever method they were using at the time. But like sometimes you had to wait. It's not going to kill them to wait. It's actually a really good skill to learn to be patient. I also remember having to like read a lot in school because I was done before, the teacher was able to move on to the next lesson and help. So like, we don't need to feel guilty about that as homeschool parents. Our kids can learn to wait 5 minutes while we finish a lesson with our other kid. It is a very good skill for them to work on. It's a good skill for them to practice, and it's very normal. So like, don't feel guilty if your children have to wait for a few minutes. They're waiting a lot more in school. Trust me. So that's kind of how I handle teaching multiple kids at once. I know it's not the perfect system. I don't think there ever is a perfect system. Some kids are always going to be needier than others. Some kids are going to need more help than others. And that is going to change day to day to day. There was a time where like when we were first learning multiplications, my oldest could not wrap her brain around that. Like she had such a hard time with that. And it was a struggle every day to do math. Now she is, like I said, super independent, does what she's got to do. And my youngest, who struggled with reading, was flying through her math right now. So like it changes from day to day who's going to need more help. But this is just what's working for us. And I hope this gives you guys some ideas and some advice on how to make homeschooling a little bit easier on yourselves when you're teaching a whole group of kids. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell to get notifications. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Consider becoming a member because members get super cool bonuses, including extra videos, early releases, coupons, all kinds of stuff. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.